thank you again, and thank you for your time. Welcome to our webinar, Project-Based Learning. And this session is going to be an hour long, and you will learn a lot of things about, again, ideas of projects which students can work on an extended period of time. So how you can engage with them in a problem-solving environment, and also about answering the complex questions that students have. So we want to keep this as interactive, and you will gain ideas about various subject matters as well, and how you can plan effectively and use them in your classrooms as well. In a nutshell, I would just say, how can you make learning come alive for students? Is that correct, Steve?
That is absolutely correct.
Thank you so much. And before I actually just pass on to Steve, I just want to ensure you introduce myself, actually. My name is Sarah Shuja, and I'm a marketing manager in Dubai office at McGraw Hill. My colleague, as you all might know, is Engin, who's a learning solution based in Turkey. He will be joining us shortly, I hope, but he and I are in the background to sort of help you out if you have any questions during the webinar. If you're facing any technical difficulties, please reach out to us and we'll make sure we are here to help you out. And a little background on our trainer for today, Steve, who's a humanitarian specialist. His expertise are both language arts and social studies, but he's going to be covering a PD session for us today. And he spent 14 years in education as a classroom teacher. Also an assistant principal, a district technology trainer. He also has a board certification. He's also received several awards, including the Orange County Teacher Award. And more importantly, he's done a lot of numerous professional development workshops, which is why he's here with us today. Thank you, Steve, so much for being with us.
Glad to be here.
Thanks. And lastly, just before I move on, pass over, I just want to make sure we cover a bit of housekeeping slides. So once you're in Zoom, just make sure you're connected to the audio and close down any high networking app like Netflix, YouTube, any gaming platform, because this might affect the bandwidth of your webinar. A lot of people want to know if we will provide the recording of this session. Yes, we will share the recording with you via email, and you will also be getting a certificate for attending this session. We will be sending that to you also through email. Actually, I have seen Steve has dropped a link in the chat box, and there's some, I think, perhaps handouts. So what I'm going to do, I'm also going to include that link in your email. So in case you have missed on this chat, you will still have the link in your email.
And Suresh, it looks like I need to approve access. So I will approve access shortly. So just so you know, if you try to log in and you need access, I'll make sure you have access.
Okay, that's good to know. And you know, he can approve access perhaps even after this session. You will still have the link, so you will be able to go back and check that out. We want to make this as interactive as possible, so we want to hear from you. Please make sure you chat with us, interact with us through the chat box that's on the right side of your screen, and equally use the Q&A box if you have any questions for me or Steve. I just want to remind you that on the right side, you can see right here, your chat box actually says host and panelist. If you can just click on the drop down for me and select everyone, then your colleagues and peers can see your comments. Right now, it's only host and panelist, so everyone cannot see your comments. If you just select that for me and hit everyone, then we will all be able to interact with each other and keep this as engaging as possible. And that's all from me for now. I will stop sharing my screen. And if you have any questions for me, I'm right here in the background. Drop them in the Q&A box. Thank you so much.
So I'm going to start off, again, quick introduction of myself as an international curriculum specialist. I normally reside in Florida. I am actually here in Montana, the northwest region of the country, working with the teachers today. But if you'll do me a favor in the chat box, just so I can get a little idea of who you are, what you are, your role as an educator, and your role as far as your knowledge of project-based learning. Just a quick comment at the chat box, if you don't mind, kind of what grade level you teach, what you work with, what subject matters you work with, and then your knowledge. Just, are you brand new? Is this your first touch with project-based learning? Would you say your experience? If you can just let me know in the chat box for a moment. I'm just going to glance over and just kind of see, get a familiarity of my audience. Great, thank you. I see some of you guys are brand new, thinking, what is project-based learning? What is another new idea? Continue typing in if you'll let me know, those of you. And I think about more than ever, whether it's the pandemic, just society itself, how do we connect to our students? How do we engage students at all levels from kindergarten to high school? So with my background, it was always kind of, and what I do just internationally is really focus on ways to engage all learners. So I think about that high achiever, I think about that struggling learner, I think about that student with a disability. So really getting on with what are we going to do to really ignite the passion of literacy, of social studies, of mathematics, really to help inspire. So I'm going to be sharing with you today some ideas, but I'm also going to be giving you time within our hour session for you to develop your own project-based learning lesson. If this is something you feel is going to work for you, and trust me when I say try it out. Great. Again, you're going to see for all different levels, so science, social studies, you're going to see this fits in. And it's funny because I was talking with a colleague the other day, we were talking, students go through, and you think back to yourself as a student, going through chunks of the day. We do math for an hour, we do science for an hour, hour and a half, whatever it may be, and we go through life with everything in chunks. Why don't we integrate? Why aren't we having conversations and incorporating math, science, art, ELA at the same time? So this is going to give you a different perspective and maybe just something else to think about. But keep in mind, all the resources I'm going to share with you provide you with all those details. So let's begin here. And let's talk about, first of all, what is project-based learning? As Suresh said, it's a way to really interact and engage all learners. So they're working on a project, but they're working on a project over an extended period of time. Instead of saying, okay, here's the unit, here's a culminating project, this is a project that really consists of the unit or the topic. So if I think about physics and I think about a topic I'm teaching, they're really working on this project, this project-based learning application or activity, and incorporating all their skills throughout the entire course of that topic. It's not just we're waiting to the end, the teacher's going through and instructing or probably that lecture-based process. It's really going to be something that's woven in. So when you talk about a real, authentic audience, why do students have to write a paper? Why do they have to turn in a test? They're usually doing it because the teacher expects them to do it. With project-based learning, the expectation is you're finding the strength of the student, and they're able to provide something as a resource for that authentic audience, more than just their class. It may even be something in their community. It may be something that even reaches back to the United States. It's an authentic audience for a real purpose of what they're doing. So when I think about some of the things I learned in school, and I think about as an adult, why did I learn that? What was the purpose? Am I really going to use that? If I, as a student, don't understand how it connects to me now, I'm not going to make that true grasp of understanding. So with that authentic audience, that's just one way. But let's talk about the idea of what is a project versus project-based learning. So let me start off by saying with a project, you're doing a traditional instruction. It's usually the end of the unit or maybe in between or somewhere in a unit. It may take a day or two. They may present it, they may not. It's usually something you score. Whereas with project-based learning, that instruction is truly integrated into the project. You're thinking about your standards or your objectives, and that is what is the focus of that project. So the project is the unit or the topic coverage. A project, here's the instructions that a teacher provides to you, whereas project-based learning is driven by student inquiry. Students are creating the questions. I can't tell you how many times as a teacher, I'm the one who, in a sense, is spoon-feeding my students. I'm creating the question. I'm creating the test. I'm creating the lessons. Let's put it back on our students. Let's see what they want to know, what's going to interest them and inspire them. Just a couple more here that I think are really interesting to think about. Can be completed alone or at home as something that you're doing during a project. Whereas project-based learning involves collaboration with students and in-class guidance from the teacher. So the teacher is just kind of guiding alongside where the students are truly collaborating. The students kind of can join in a group where they're of something they're interested in. When I think of collaboration with students, I also think of social and emotional learning. I also think about the skills we need to be a good person, to have those good listening skills, things that we have, lifelong skills that impact us. A couple more here remains within the school world, and that's something we usually do when we're doing a project. Whereas project-based learning is real world context and application. And finally, project, you have an end result of a project, which is usually displayed or maybe a brief presentation, whereas the result of a project-based learning activity is shared beyond the classroom, whether it's advertised on a social media site, whether it's reaching out to a government official, political official, whether it's involved with a community service project. So I'll be sharing both project-based learning activities as well as service-based learning activities. And think about something that you could actually use tomorrow in class, next week in class. I want to make sure that this topic is something you can easily see infused in your day-to-day world without thinking to yourself, wow, this is a lot of work, or how do I even begin? Where do I start? So don't worry, I'm going to provide you with all the templates and everything you need to get you started on the right track. But I want to begin with what makes students engage, what really gets them excited. And we want to make sure we have a clear, compelling question that connects with our students. So in any subject matter, what is it that makes the student think, okay, I really want to do this. This is something I'm excited about. I want you to listen to one of our thought leaders. And if the audio is not great, Suresh, just let me know. But I want you to listen to one of our thought leaders as she talks about how we infuse compelling questions.
Dimension 1, planning questions and inquiries, begins with that essential or compelling question. And typically we have given kids facts about social studies or history and then asked them questions later. But research tells us that we want to start with the question. So this idea of a compelling question or an essential question is an overarching question. It's relevant. It provides rigor for instruction. It's the kind of question that gets under kids' skin, gets them to want to come to school, to want to learn more. Compelling questions are when rigor and relevance meet.
And I think that's so important to understand because everything we should be doing should be connecting with our students, getting them excited, getting them understanding how it really affects them in the real world. So when I go back to where we left off, the key point with project-based learning on the right-hand side, the second one, driven by student inquiry. And inquiry happens in any subject matter. Inquiry is where students are really going through the 4 dimensions. And we're going to talk about those 4 dimensions just quickly. Maybe it's something you've been exposed to. But the inquiry arc provides that dimension where students are developing the questions. What is it that they want to learn? I think about my own son where now if he has a question, he shouts it out and Alexa or Siri responds with an answer. They're so accessible with technology right now. But it's great because it's something that he wants to know. Whereas dimension 2, going down a little bit further, is now where they're going to apply disciplinary tools and concepts. They're going to evaluate sources and develop claims using evidence. So again, we're going to talk about even how in English language arts, we can use that inquiry arc. And dimension 4 is communicating conclusions and most importantly, taking informed action. What can a student do with that knowledge and impart it immediately? We're not going to wait until they graduate. We're not going to wait until they finish 11th grade or even 7th grade. What can they do immediately to impact this knowledge and make it really that complete circle of understanding? So going back to that list again, we're going to talk about that real world application and the success and skills. So let's think about this right now. Most of you mentioned, I think in the chat box, let me check real quickly here. Thank you for mentioning the audio, okay. That most of you are brand new you have some knowledge, maybe you haven't implored it as far as some ideas. So we're going to discuss some of the successes and challenges for implementing project-based learning. So for me, in my world as an educator, and I've taught multiple grades, I've been curriculum district coordinator, it was always, here's the resources that were placed in front of me. I had to follow a specific scope and sequence. Not to say anything negative about my administrator, but it was pretty much that we were all expected to be on the same page each day. And it was hard because my students were different from my colleagues' students. Their needs were different. How my teaching style is different. I love doing projects. It's my style, it's my nature. So that was a challenge for me, was to prove that I'm still covering all the standards or all the scope and sequence or all the skills that are required for mastery, but that I could easily assess them. The success was my students were so inspired. The gains, the yearly gains, were making leaps and bounds beyond some of my other colleagues and within my school, because it was connecting with students and it was interesting for students. So I'm going to show you some resources, and I'm going to go directly into, if you want to log on, if you're at a computer and you want to log in as well, I'm going to go to pblworks.org. Let me take you there first. And what you're going to find here, give me 1 second. What you're going to find here with PBL Works, and this is just one great thing I'm going to share with you, and then I'm going to kind of show you how we infuse that within our McGraw Hill products. So we're diving into a collection of rubrics. So one thing that's great is I'm telling you there's so many templates and the rubrics are already created for you. You don't have to buy anything. You don't have to recreate the wheel. It's all done for you. So if you want to watch some video presentations of some other teachers teaching some different lessons in different subject matter, definitely this is a site I would recommend. And really, this compiles everything in the latest research, the effectiveness of project-based learning, and really we're going to talk about momentarily about service-based learning and infusing subject matters into one project. So if I know in science I'm working on topic whatever, and in ELA we're covering this specific selection or this story, in math we're covering this topic, I can actually infuse and integrate this into one project that my students are working on independently, along with what I'm teaching throughout the course of the day. So again, this is just pblworks.org, and you'll see I have /resources, but pblworks.org. Take a moment right now, if you are at your computer, open another tab and just glimpse to see what's available at your fingertips. And you'll notice there's a wealth of different, I can click on different links. You'll see here, I just clicked on, if you look back on my screen, not to confuse going back and forth, I clicked on projects. And on the left-hand side, you can see projects for all subject matter, for all grade levels, and then focusing on specific standards or skills. So again, that's something I would go to. So think about something that you're focusing on in class right now. Take a look at one of those projects. I'm going to give you a couple minutes, and based on what you see, just a glimpse, we're going to get more in depth, but based on what you see, I'm just giving them your response, if this is something that would entice your students, if this would get them excited. And while you're looking at specific lessons, I'm going to give you access to that Google Drive so you can click on that link. Give me one moment here. I was going to stop sharing for a moment. You guys just keep looking at that for one moment while I give everyone access. Okay, hopefully that works now so that you can access that. I'm gonna put it in one more time just to see. If not, I'll kind of work on that. I see lots of comments coming in. And if you let me know once again, once you click on that, you should be able to access one that says PBL template. All right, let me have you pause back and draw your attention back to my screen. And if not, no worries, don't worry. I'll give you permission afterwards to make sure that everyone can access this. But this is a template right now that I would love for you to actually start taking notes on, just kind of thinking about. So this is just one template, an idea. So you can take what's already created. But to me, I want to make everything that fits, again, my students' needs, my style of teaching. So again, the template is just you create a catchy title for whatever you want. Focus on a clear overview. What is it that's going to be that compelling question? What is driving that project? So when you think about what topic you're covering in English or math or science or social studies, and then you're going to list those specific standards or outcomes. What is it that we want from our students? What is the end all be all? Then there's going to be the requirements. What is expected of them as that journey along the way? Like I said before, it's not something where we're going to say, okay, here's the deadline. This is due this date. This is something they're working on for a long duration of time. They're going to record their notes in the research search. They're going to have online steps and plans. And then, so again, they're creating this. I'm going to initial this project to say, okay, this is something, you know your objectives. This is something that you want to work with, you want to create. I am not always, like I said, I'm not always going to dictate what project my students are doing. I may give them options. I may model the very first time I do this together to kind of show them what I expect, but I want this to come from the students. So it's not me generating everything. It's the students working cooperatively to actually have this goal in mind. And you're going to see, you have your expectations. I guarantee they are going to rise and exceed your expectations. But please, if this is your first time doing project-based learning, guide them through, do a lot of modeling the first time. After that, it really is less work for you, and it really does become something more engaging for the students, and you are just guiding them along. So there's some things that other templates, such as the Global Studies Project, that I'll share with you. So those of you who are in the social studies sector, kind of looking at some just different ways where a lot of the knowledge and content, sometimes it's hard for students to even access the content. Sometimes they can't grasp that global connection. So here's just some project that they're working on in a sense, but you'll notice that there's also going to be a service-related project. So it's something where they're connecting to what's happening to the past, to what's happening today in their world or their community or even globally. And it's something they're going to act on. It's not that they're just going to write about it or just think about it or have a discussion about it. They are going to do something. Again, it may be reaching out to organization. It may be writing a pamphlet. It may be something that they're actually going to actually become a true change agent. And I use the term future ready thinkers. When I think about how our students are the future, we want them guiding us in a prosperous way, in a safe way, in a caring, compassionate way. And this is just one of the ways that we're going to do it. So it's actually something they do. So one of the ideas I want to share with you is a passion project. And this is something that we use. Maybe some of you have heard of the ELA program called StudySync. And the question here is, how can your mindset affect your life? So I want you to think about, no matter what you teach, it always begins with the mindset. If students are not coming into my classroom ready for instruction, ready to see how it relates to them, ready to see how it affects them, then I'm not going to have that true impact that I really want to have. So my goal here to inspire a student and change the world begins with a passion project. So I'm going to go right now to our StudySync platform. If you have not seen this platform before, this is specifically created for grades 6 through 12. Again, you don't have to have this at all. This is just where I'm getting one of my projects from, and these projects are absolutely free. So within the project here, within StudySync, which has a wealth of selections of stories, there's articles, but I'm going to go to this activity here. This is a brand new one, so we always keep these updated. And in this case, keep the momentum of the school year going with a discussion about achievement and perseverance. So we're going to start off with a basic conversation, kind of pulling in their own interests and really focusing on the year 2022. We just began. We're already facing some hardships and some challenges in our society, in our world globally. And the question is, how can your mindset affect your life? So again, that compelling question, and we may just want to have small group conversations and really think about in anything we learn, how is that topic? How is that going to be relevant to what we learn? We have already, within our resources, tacked on specific projects, and it may be links to a TED Talk, if you're familiar with TED Talks, just about growth mindset. So again, I don't care what grade level, I don't care what specific subject matter, this is about making the students and getting them engaged. So you're going to see suggested selections, fiction, nonfiction. You can pick and choose different languages as well. There's going to be spotlight text where we're focusing on specific skills. So in this case, it's going to be language, style, and audience with our literacy text, and author's purpose and point of view. And I always like to say, as a former social studies teacher, I'm still responsible for the English language arts skills and standards. So make sure they're infused into all subject matter. So again, this is just a basic idea with the end-all goal of how they're going to eventually show and prove their mindset of growth. So again, I can be incorporating different topics, different things, but think about it. If I have a 10th grade student, this is a project they can work on no matter what the class may be. So this may be something that as a whole core grade level as teachers, or even as a high school project or a middle school project, this is something you want your students working on. Again, they're going to use their template. They're going to take these resources and create their own project. And it may be groups of students working with just one other student, maybe a group of 5 other students. And I have some students that prefer to work independently, and that's okay too. It's about what's going to get them engaged. So again, this is just one of those resources. If you go to the link, and this is free, if you go to studysync.com, and you'll just see some blast text pairings at the top here. So I'll put that in the chat box just to make sure everyone can see it. And you'll find these blog posts. And again, you'll have my information if you want to contact me for more information later. But this is just one way, because I like to say, when I'm starting with something, make it easy for me. Give me the tools I need to start me off with success. So this is just one idea I wanted to share with you. So just quickly, thoughts, feedbacks, and I know this may relate to, you may see it as specifically for English language arts teacher, but I can still pull topics related to science, to social studies, various topics. So just quickly your feedback. I'd love to know kind of what you're thinking right now as I move throughout this presentation. I'll kind of pause there and wait. As I see some of you guys typing in there, I want to show you one more it's kind of idea. So what we did when we were focusing on, as McGraw Hill was focusing on social studies, you know, there's so many changes. And a lot of times when we're learning about something globally, we have very limited perspectives. So we really had to change things up, provide more perspectives, and making sure students see themselves within the text. So again, I just want to share a project with you. Again, based on inquiry. So here's the compelling question. What are the effects of technology on society? So think about it. Any subject matter, we're using technology. We're using technology in our career or skill. In most cases, not all cases, but in most cases, think about your students with social media right now. And we're going to plan for inquiry first. So take a moment as I show you, and I'm going to go through the inquiry arc. And this is just one idea that we're going to kind of focus on, that project-based learning. We're going to provide background information, just kind of a big glimpse of just background information before the students get started creating with their own template, creating their own project. And we're going to provide them with various with that compelling question. No matter what you have as compelling questions, they're going to be creating questions that they want to learn about. What is something that they're interested in finding out? I'm not going to guide them with them. It's for them to choose. Then we're going to give them historical concepts. So they're going to be writing about specific topics and just researching, adding notes. This is kind of step one in getting them set up for success with their project. So I may give them limited resources, but it's going to be providing them with things they can research online, books you already have in the classroom. But the goal here, I'm going to slide down to the bottom here. The goal here is that they're going to take their information now and they're going to answer their supporting questions that they started off with. Remember, this is their questions they want to figure out that they'll be sharing with the class. So maybe the one group has these groups of questions, another group has a whole different batch of questions that they're sharing. But then they're going to kind of do some integration of conversations. So some of group A members and B members and C members are going to come together, have conversations. They may write about it or simply just collaborate about it. Their goal, and this is the first thing I'm going to put in front of them, is something that they can take true action on. So based on that technology or that piece, is it good or bad for society? So think about technology today. Think about spacecraft. Think about internet. Think about spam. Think about the pros and cons of technology and what your students would say as pros and cons. So what should be done to either promote the technology or prevent its negative impacts? So I'm going to give students kind of a loose guidance of kind of their outcome as they're making connections. And again, this is just choices. You can have more, but the students are to create their own choice. So whether it's writing a true newspaper editorial, that's something that's going to get published. I want to make sure that that's clear, that they are doing something that is for an authentic audience. They may produce a podcast or video sharing their opinion. They may write a letter to a government official. So again, a purpose for an authentic audience, not because they're turning into the teacher for a grade. So think of that. So that is just one other idea where they're taking informed action. I see some questions coming in or some comments coming in. I apologize. Oh, no worries. Great thing that this is recorded so you can look back and watch it anytime. And I always like to just share ideas here as well, wealth of resources. So what I did was I spoke to a teacher that has had phenomenal success in the way that she not only infuses project-based learning, but also infuses service-based learning, which was new to me. I've done project-based learning, but service-based learning was something that I really didn't think about. So I want you to watch this video. She was going to be here live with me. However, it would have been 5 o'clock in the morning for her. So I just asked her to record herself and send it in. So I'm just going to show you a glimpse. This is Jamie Vaughn, and she is a teacher
Hey there.
in Nevada.
My name is Jamie Vaughn, and
introduce yourself.
I have been an educator for about 20 years. I'm in my 20th year of teaching, and I work in a town called Reno, Nevada in the United States. And I have taught social studies and English language arts with middle school and high school kids. And I thoroughly enjoy it. And I love working with teachers, trying to help them breathe life into their classroom. And I am a huge supporter of making our students engaged more. When I was a kid, I did not have the engagement that I needed to actually enjoy learning. And it wasn't until I got into college that I really understood how learning should be. So I was one of those students who didn't understand why I was learning math or science or English or social studies. I just knew that I had to go to school, and that was about it. So when I started teaching, I was really, really focused on making sure that my kids understood why they were learning what they were learning in my classroom and how it even mattered and how it connected to their real life. So while I do lecture a little bit, and that's totally fine, but I really try to steer away from imparting facts on my kids and having them take tests and memorization and things like that. So I am a staunch supporter of projects. I like my kids to be working collaboratively. I like to listen to them solve problems. So most of my lessons, if not all of my lessons, revolve around an inquiry question. And whether it be inquiring about something in the community and how they can be part of fixing a problem. So there's a lot of problem solving and things like that. So we have what we call project-based learning. And I tend to do a lot of project-based learning. And I'm just going to share with you briefly 2 that I use in particular. One is called service learning, and one is called, it's a global issues project that I give to my kids, and they absolutely love it, where they learn all about globalization, what it means, and all of the global issues revolving around globalization, whether it be poverty, in the environment, and there's just there's like multiple issues that we have globally. So they learn about those issues, and then they get to choose one of the issues, like really narrow it down and find the problem and figure out how they can bring awareness to the community. And they do that through a public service announcement. They video them, a PSA, we call them. And so that's the product. And so that is their demonstration to me that they understand what they have learned. And they also have to connect everything to social studies, math class, science class, and English language arts classes. It all goes together. When I was in school, everything was on a different island. I went to social studies. I did not understand how that connected to my English class. I did not understand how math can connect and how science can connect. So project-based learning, you can really help students understand how they all connect. So the other one I want to share with you a little bit in more detail is my service learning project that you can either do service learning in a month, which I'm actually doing right now with a leadership class at one of the schools that I work at with 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. Actually, yeah, they're 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. And I was the service learning coordinator at a local high school for about 6 years, where all of my juniors in my social studies class had to get together in groups of 3, and do a service learning project. So I'm just going to kind of briefly explain to you what that service learning project looks like. And just so you know, I didn't really introduce myself. I apologize. I mean, I did, but I actually, yes, I'm an educator still. And I also have a consulting group called Coach 2 Engaged, Coach number 2 Engage. And you can find me on all of the social media outlets, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. This is my service learning project. It's service learning is kids learning through the community. So, and by the way, I did a service learning project in college, and that's how I really got this love of bringing it to my students. And it was one of the best things I ever did. It was just amazing. So service learning combines community service with classroom instruction, focusing on critical and reflective thinking, as well as personal and civic responsibility. It engages students in the educational process using what they learned in the classroom to solve real life problems. Kids love it when it's connected to their real life. Otherwise, it doesn't really make sense to them, and they tend to lose interest. So students not only learn about democracy and citizenship, they become actively contributing citizens and community members through service that they perform through experiential learning, research, presentation skills, and super importantly, reflection. The partnerships between community, students, and faculty are reciprocal, so they work together, meaning they have shared responsibility and gain helping students address local needs while developing their academic skills and commitment to the community. I'm going to kind of go through a little bit. I'm not going to go through the whole entire presentation because that will take a little bit too long, but it's important to understand that there is a difference between volunteerism, community service, internships, field work and education and work, and service learning. Service learning does focus on community service, volunteerism, internship, and field education. And there's a service component to it, and there's a learning component to it. So like if we're just volunteering in the classroom or outside in the community, we might be, I don't know, coaching football. You're not really learning, you're not bringing your academic skills into that volunteerism, right? So, and with internship, you are focusing on a specific profession, right? So if you're doing an internship in teaching, you're learning about teaching, right? But the idea of service learning is to bring in all of the classes that you are in and making those connections. And skills too, not just the content, but skills as well. So we incorporate service learning because it promotes numerous academic skills. Problem solving, these are all 21st century skills, if you've heard of that. Problem solving, problem analysis, critical thinking, logical reasoning, detailed observation, issue identification, so you are identifying issues, communication skills, collaboration, and creative abilities. Those are all the 21st century skills right there. It also enhances student motivation to learn, student retention, so important, improves learning, student learning outcomes, and it's data-driven, better understanding of your core academic courses, your classes. It also encourages sustainability, civic engagement, experience, exposure, awareness, high interest area for students, they can explore new avenues. They might think of different ways that things that they want to do in their future because of the service learning. And my students, after they've done their service learning projects, have actually gotten hired because of the awesome job that they did for the community member. Looks great on their resume as well. So yeah, potential career and job opportunities and personal connections. So there are different ways that you can incorporate service learning, and you can do service learning for elementary, middle, and high school. You just have to, just kind of modify it to meet the needs of your particular age group. Okay, so you can do things in the community, like at animal shelters. You can put together a blood drive. Some of my students did blood drives. They've also done book drives. They have done, so in their school, they've created a group of people that could write letters to soldiers overseas. So there's all kinds of different things. You can create a babysitting co-op in the neighborhood. You can do a neighborhood beautification day, picking up garbage or whatever it is that you're doing just to beautify. You can do garden.
And I just want to share with you, I want to stop her right now for a moment. I mean, she has a wealth of ideas, and her success in the district and state is phenomenal. I did make sure in the link that I sent you, I provided you with some of her templates that she uses, actually completed service learning projects. You have an idea of a project-based learning activity as well as a service learning project. They're both PBLs. One, again, is integrating more of all subject matter. One may be focused on a specific matter. And then, as well as, I just want to kind of mention, I just did a podcast with Jamie as well. If you get a chance, she'll hear from a variety of thought leaders, all focusing on ways to engage students. Because I think when we talk about project-based learning, it stems from how do we get students engaged and engaged for a real purpose in making a difference in today's world. And I think that's huge. And I think that's the reason that we are educators, correct? That we want to make a change. We want to make a difference in a student's life. But more importantly, we want to make a difference in this world. We need to make a difference in this world. Let's be honest. So just to kind of recap and just kind of show you where we last left off with the template that hopefully you can access, but that's okay if you can't. I will share this, I promise, at the end. So this is just one you have that I shared with you, is again the project idea. Whether it's your school, your state standards, your country standards, I'm not sure how it works in Turkey specifically, but that essential question or that compelling question, that's got to be so important as far as really making sure that it connects with students. Remember, they're taking this one example or that first project that I modeled for them, and then they're going to be the ones that create the projects from here on out. They get to decide if they want to do a service project with this organization or that organization. It doesn't have to be me doing all that groundwork of creating everything. Let them be the change agents. So I'm going to pause right there because we're coming to the end of our time. And I just want to open up this conversation up to any questions you have, thoughts you're pondering, thinking about some things that may be challenges for you as you begin thinking about integrating just one project-based learning. I urge you just to try it once. You will love it. Your students will love it. So I'm just opening up for questions right now. This is the Q&A time. Yes, I'll make sure I send it again. And if it's still, for some reason, if it's locked, I will have Suresh or your local representative send out the files for you. PBL Works has been phenomenal for me. It really has kind of provided all the resources that I need. And if you are under the expectation where, again, you're teaching physics or you're teaching American history and this is what you need to cover, that's fine, but cover it in a way that is going to really, connect with the students. And in doing so, project-based learning I'm telling you, you can reach out to teachers across the board. You go on Facebook. Teachers will tell you it has changed the way they teach. It has reinvigorated them as teachers because they're not the ones who are constantly being that lecturer on the stage, or, you know, kind of the idea there. Yes, I'll definitely share the rubrics and guidelines with you. Any other questions or thoughts? I'd love to hear for some more of you, or if you found any of the project-based learning activities that you think you'll really be able to integrate into your instruction in this next couple of weeks. I'd love to hear that. And I'd also love to hear from you down the road. So if you do try something a month from now and it works successfully, you had challenges a month from now, I'd love for you to reach out to me. We'll make sure you have my contact information and that you have an idea. Also on the podcast, you'll see with my interview, you'll see just some ideas. Again, if you're, I don't know if we can unmute some of you, but I'd love to hear what has worked successfully for you. And if you yourself have a project-based learning activity that you have done successfully, or I say you have done something, please share that in the chat box. Share that with your colleagues, because a lot of times you may do something in your classroom, and sometimes we close our classroom door and we really don't share our great ideas, or people don't really understand how important it is to mess with all the students. Just answering some questions here. Yeah, so when I think about interdisciplinary, kind of really connecting with that, you know, so focused, as Jamie mentioned as well, we're kind of working in our silos. So my first suggestion would be simply starting off slowly. Don't jump in completely. Start off with just you as the teacher, taking your grasp at that one project-based learning activity. Then what works successfully for to me is I, as an English language arts teacher, I paired up with a social studies teacher. And I just asked that teacher, hey, what are you covering? What topics are you covering in the next couple of months? And I looked at what we were going to be doing as far as reading and the skill lessons, because I knew I was targeting specific skills. So I used that as the start of my project. It was really funny because then the math and science teachers, they connected on a project. And then eventually we all did a complete interdisciplinary project that was kind of sent out by the school. What was really interesting was, like I said, students are the ones that sometimes we find it difficult because we know our subject areas so well. Whereas when students say, hey, I know you're working on this in social studies, you're working on this in math, it's like, what project idea do you have? Trust me when I say your students will want to come up with something that's going to be awe-inspiring to you. And like I said, let 3 or 4 students shine. Let them share their ideas, but don't think that it has to be just you thinking of this. Because again, we have so much to accomplish in our day and our tasks. So that is just one way I would say start off slowly. Start off first with your subject matter, and then eventually get to that interdisciplinary, where again, it's every one of the teachers are involved in some respect, because remember, you're doing very little. You're just guiding. It's the students that are working on this in a somewhat independent time period, but it's happening in school. It's not happening as an outside project. It's happening in the course of the school day. So hopefully that gives you some kind of idea for the start point of it. I know our time has come to an end, so I just want to say thank you so much for attending the session, and I look forward to hearing from your feedback and what successes you've had between blended learning, between project-based learning and service learning, and just some more that you learn tomorrow as well. So thank you so much. It was a pleasure getting to interact with you. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much, Steve. I learned a lot from this session. That's a very interesting topic. I didn't know that this project-based learning, you could cover so much in that. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
And the podcast as well.
everyone.
Thank you for sharing. Bye, everyone. We don't want to take more of your time. Make sure we will send you the recording of the session. And I'll make sure you have the certificates as well. Thank you. Oh, you're very welcome, Maggie. She says it's very informative. You're welcome. Thank you so much. And see you next time. Bye.